All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? Looks good. Great. All right. So we can go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. When we talk about the NestQuest program, we'll talk a little bit about some bumblebee ecology and stuff. But my name is Elise Bernstein. I work for the Bee Squad, which is the education and outreach arm of the Bee Lab at the University of Minnesota. So I do lots of education and outreach work across the Twin Cities, as well as some bumblebee research. So working on the Bumblebee NestQuest project along with the Minnesota Bumblebee Atlas.
I'm Elaine Evans. I'm an extension educator and researcher here at the University of Minnesota. So my work all revolves around pollinator conservation in one way or another. So Elise and I collaborate a lot on the Bumblebee Atlas and this project. And then I also just do straight up research on bees and a lot of public engagement to get people to help us learn more about the pollinators that we have.
And my name is Chan. I'm working part-time with the Bee Lab right now to work on some outreach and engagement with things like NestQuest and the Bumblebee Atlas. So I'm kind of just here and there. I recently graduated from the University of Minnesota in the Bee Lab, where I studied bumblebee nesting specifically. So I have a bit of background in this area of research. And I'm also currently a seasonal naturalist at Three Rivers Park District.
Awesome. So today, here's a brief overview of what we're going to talk about. Before we get started with this, if you have questions that come up as we're presenting, feel free to use the raise hand feature and we will call on you and you can unmute and share your question with everybody. You can also feel free to put your questions in the chat. We are going to try and answer all of the questions in the chat live in the few breaks that we'll take throughout this presentation, just so that everybody can hear the answers to the questions, and then those questions also get shared in the recording. So if anything we talk about during this presentation you want to revisit, you'll be able to review the recording of this as well. So to start off today, we're going to do a super brief, broken down version of some bumblebee ecology, some bumblebee nesting information. We'll talk a little bit about the bumblebee life cycle. We'll touch on why bumblebee nests are important and why that's kind of sort of where this project, where the NestQuest is motivated from. We'll talk about some previous research related to bumblebee nesting, talk about how to look for nests, how to assess nesting habitats. We'll talk about Survey 123, which is the app that you'll use to record all of your data for NestQuest. And then we will wrap up by talking a little bit about field safety. So this is a very, very short version of some bumblebee ecology and conservation information as part of the Bumblebee Atlas. Elaine and I did a 2.5-hour webinar alongside some of the folks at the Xerces Society on bumblebee ecology and conservation. So there's a QR code here on the screen if you want to access that video. I think Elaine's also popping that link in the chat. But if you want a longer, broader version of some of this bumblebee ecology and conservation information, feel free to watch that video to get some more details there. But to start off, it's important to note that pollinators are a keystone species. So more than 85% of flowering plants require some type of animal, generally an insect, for pollination. So our pollinators are very, very important in supporting and sustaining ecosystems. One of these important pollinators are bees. Bees are considered the most effective pollinator. They consume nectar and pollen as larvae and adults. They collect and transport pollen. So when they're on a flower, either drinking nectar, and gathering pollen, they can move more of that pollen from one flower to another than any other types of pollinators. And they also exhibit flower constancy. So this means that they will stay on one type of flower, one species of flower, as they are out foraging. They'll go visit most often the same type of plant when they're out, which helps to support pollination. But why are we focusing on bumblebees as our pollinator of choice? There are a few key reasons, but it sort of boils down to that their large size makes them a lot easier to survey than a lot of our other bees. They are easier to find because they're larger. You can see in that image on the bottom left corner there, that is a bumblebee compared to a sweat bee. The size difference is really significant. The bumblebee is much easier to spot when you're out in the fields. Their large size also makes them easier to photograph than a lot of our smaller pollinators. And bumblebees are also unique because they are some of the only bees that you can ID to the species level just from photographs alone. Bumblebees have several different needs. This includes overwintering habitat. So this is a place for queens to spend the winter. They'll usually dig themselves a few inches into the soil in order to survive the winter and persist into the next season. So having overwintering habitat is really important for them to persist from one year to the next. Foraging habitat is another bumblebee need. So this is different species of flowering plants. This is necessary for bumblebees to survive, for them to meet all of their nutritional needs. And then the third need for bumblebees is nesting habitat. And this is what we are going to be focused on today. So talking about kind of how bumblebees find nests, where they might be nesting, kind of what makes up these different nesting habitats. So nest searching begins in the springtime. So this is usually done by a solitary queen. She will fly around in sort of this zigzag pattern. You can see kind of this is what's outlined in yellow here. This is sort of the pattern that the queen might fly around in as she's looking for an appropriate nesting site. You'll see her stop in various places to sort of explore that habitat in that area. She might stop for a little bit and then continue on in this zigzag pattern as she's looking for a suitable nesting site. Once she finds a place to nest, that's when she will begin her colony, but this nest is established in one of these various places. Some species of bumblebees prefer to nest on the surface of the ground. Others prefer to nest underground. This might be just a little bit underground or several feet underground, but regardless of that level, whether they're on the surface or underground, they're looking for nests that have some sort of pre-existing insulation. So bumblebees are not necessarily digging their own nest cavities. They might use sites like abandoned rodent dens. This is something that is very common for bumblebees. In urban areas, you might find bumblebees nesting in like abandoned birdhouses. We've seen bumblebees in backyard furniture like couch cushions and things like that. So sites that have sort of that pre-existing insulation. And while there are some things that we know about where they prefer to nest and what sites are more common than others, there's still a lot of information that we don't know when it comes to bumblebee nesting. See if this video will play. So this is a Bimaculatus nest. So this is the two-spotted bumblebee. This is, I guess, sort of what you might expect to see in the nest. There's the queen and some workers crawling around there. You can see the little wax cells and some of the pupa. Within these bumblebee colonies that the queen establishes, there are different divisions of labor. So different classes of bumblebees have different roles. So the queen, she's the one that establishes that nest. She is the reproductive female. So we'll talk about the life cycle here in a second, but the queen is the one who is laying all of the eggs. So she's producing all of the workers and the drones within the colony. So within that, there are larger workers that carry the brunt of the foraging responsibility. So they're the ones that are leaving the colonies, going out to flowers to gather nectar and pollen to bring back to share with their sisters. There are also smaller workers that have more responsibilities within the colony. And then the last sort of class we have is the drones. So these are the reproductive males, and the drones are usually produced at the end of the season, and they will typically leave the colony and go out to mate with other queens. They might do some amount of sort of maintenance and upkeep within that colony, like those smaller workers, but their primary role is as a reproductive to go out and mate with a queen. So the bumblebee life cycle is really relevant to sort of nesting for bumblebees, because it's sort of different times of year will influence what you might see when you're out in the field. So in the spring, bumblebee queens will emerge from their overwintering site, typically where they've been just a few inches under the soil. The queens have sort of an antifreeze in their blood that allows them to survive our really, really cold winters. And they will emerge from that overwintering place early in the spring. And that's when they begin that nest searching process. So we showed that image earlier of sort of that yellow zigzaggy line. So that early in the spring is when you will see most queens nest searching. Different species of bumblebees emerge at different times. Some of them come out early in the spring, some come out later in the spring, but they will start looking for that place to create a nest. Once they find a site that is suitable for a nest, they will begin to lay eggs and begin to establish their colony. So the queen will lay some eggs. She will still be going out to forage for pollen and nectar as those first few workers are emerging. But once the colony begins to grow, the queen sort of assumes the role as being a reproductive, and she stays within the colony. And those foraging workers are the ones that are going out, gathering nectar and pollen, bringing them back into their colonies as the size continues to grow throughout the course of the summer. As we move throughout the summer into late summer and early fall, the queens will then start producing males. And as well as new queens. The queen bumblebees become queens because they get more food than the rest of the eggs that are in that colony. So late in the summer is when new queens and males are being produced, and these new queens and males will leave the colony. They will find other bees to mate with. And then those new queens will sort of start that cycle over again. Before the winter time, they will find a spot to overwinter, dig themselves a few inches into the soil. And the colony that they came from, along with all of those males, will die, and they do not survive the winter. It's just those new queens that are surviving our winters. So understanding the life cycle is important when it comes to thinking about bumblebee nesting biology, because those different times of year sort of influence what you might be seeing. So with that, I'll turn things over to Elaine here to talk a little bit about our study design.
Right. Where did everything go? And then go flip over to sources hiding it. This. Slide. We'll get there. All right. That looks right, right?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, we're really excited about this Bumblebee Nest Quest program. I just want to mention first off that this is a new program this year. So it's something we've been thinking about for a little while, but have not been engaging volunteers to do this before. It's something that we're really excited to engage volunteers with because the protocols are pretty simple. We get to have some other bumblebee surveys where you need to have a little bit more training about bumblebee identification, which can be a little tricky. This, you just need to be able to walk around and recognize bumblebees when you see them out there, just to be a bumblebee. We'll explain more about the protocols, but I just wanted to mention that about before we launch into this, and kind of as an explanation that we're still kind of getting all these materials together. You know, it's our first time explaining this to volunteers. So, so please do ask for clarification. It may well be that we have things in our head that we thought we explained that we didn't. So please let us know as we go through. But we want to start out with just giving some background on work that has been done in this area with bumblebee nesting. So part of the reason why we're really interested in the nesting is because we know that a lot of bumblebees are not doing well. About 1 out of every 3 species is of conservation concern. And a big part of conserving conservation plans for bumblebees is with habitat. And it can be a lot easier to just see bees at flowers and know what kind of flowers they need. When it comes to nesting habitat, we don't have a lot of information for most of these bumblebees. So these kind of programs like this, where we're getting more information about their nesting habitat, is going to have direct implications for conservation. So we can really be more specific when we're trying to help bumblebees. So we know that nesting habitat is really important, but there's just a lot of bumblebee species that don't have a lot of documentation for their nests. Part of that is because nests can be difficult to find, but there's a few different ways that people have been finding nests. So they've been doing it from mapping flight patterns, radio tracking, using detection dogs, and doing visual surveys with transects. So for the mapping, this is from one of my favorite bumblebee resources, where this thesis work from Morgan Webb, who was working in Nebraska in the 60s. And he described several hundred different nests that he found in the process of his studies. And he did it by he was walking around his study area. He says here, individual workers were noted departing with full loads, particularly of pollen, and they were followed by sight as far as possible. An approximate line of travel was plotted on a map. And eventually he had enough lines from different bees taking off in the same direction from kind of all over the study site, that he'd see a bunch of lines intersecting and go there and look for nests there. So that clearly takes a lot of work. You have to have a study site that you're really focused on, but something that worked really well for him. And he was able to, here's a map of just from one of the species. With all the asterisks, there are all these nests that he found over 3 years for Bombus griseocolus, which is the brown belted bumblebee. So people have also been working to train dogs. So dogs are trainable to recognize even different species of bumblebees, and to recognize their nests and find their nests. This is something people are continuing to refine. We've in the Bee Lab here, we've been sending a couple different dog groups some bumblebee nest material to train their dogs. And one thing is that it does tend to work better in some habitats than others. It still takes a bit of time. Well, it takes a long time training the dogs, and but even with that expertise, then just being out walking with the dogs through the sites. People have also been using radio telemetry, and so this is something that's been the technology is always improving with this. So up to now, it's mostly been having to be just on kind of larger bees that can carry tags with these little batteries on them. Now there are solar powered tags that don't need a battery. So those are getting lighter. We might be able to use them on more average size bees. And people have been using this successfully to tag bees and follow them back to the nest. There have also been surveys that have done using these visual surveys, so going out and looking for bees. And so, Chan, do you want to just like jump in for a second and talk about this? Because this is you, so I don't have to just
Yeah.
talk about you while you're sitting there.
Yeah, yeah, so visual surveys are kind of, this is like the most similar to what volunteers are going to be doing for Nest Quest. It's just going out and visually looking for bumblebees going into their nest. So no nest dog sniffing them out, no fancy radio telemetry, just your eyes to locate a nest. And some folks have done this in different kinds of research. Genevieve Pujasic did this in 2018, 2019 in Massachusetts, where she set up these 1,500-meter square plots, which is about the size of a soccer field and a half, to look for nests. And out there, they had like 5 people looking, and they found about 100 nests, primarily in meadows and forests on the East Coast. I also recently did this for my master's research here in Minnesota in 2022 and 2023. I was going to talk a little bit about my results in a few slides from now, when it's relevant to kind of when we get into where bumblebees nest in Minnesota. So maybe I won't put that spoiler for now. Back to you, Elaine.
All right, thanks, Jan. I wanted to mention one other kind of previous work that's been done that was a big inspiration for this work as well, where the researchers in the UK, Juliet Osborne and a bunch of other people that she was working with back in 2004, they were engaging volunteers to look for bumblebee nests. So they had 719 volunteers that described over 1,300 nests. So this volunteer engagement part is this really really exciting way to get more of these data, because it is labor intensive and but yet is really important data.
Yeah, I'll just add that the volunteer part is really important, because a lot of what we know about finding nests right now is just spending time in the field. Visually finding them seems to be the best way. So the more people we have, the better. And as you can see, with 719 people finding almost 1,400 nests, that's like super good and a ton of nests. I think it's my turn to talk.
Yeah, I will stop sharing so you can.
Okay, and I'm going to share. All right, can everyone see the slides? We good?
Yes.
Okay, so with all those different ways of finding bumblebee nests, this is just a paper put together by Amanda Lixner and Sheila Kola, which is just a review and like a compilation of all the data from all these different ways of finding nests to kind of give us an idea of where bumblebees are nesting around the world. So like what kind of different habitats are they nesting in? So bumblebees nest in generally a lot of different kinds of habitats, including agriculture, alpine habitats, dune habitats, forests, edges, grasslands, tropical forests, and urban areas. So we know that bumblebees nest in a variety of different habitats, but where it gets kind of mucky is understanding how different bumblebees are using different habitats. And so here in Minnesota, some of those immediately relevant ones are like, how are bumblebees using agricultural lands for nesting? How are they using forests? And how are they using grasslands like prairies? So that brings me to, where are bumblebees nesting in Minnesota? And that's kind of the big question that we want to answer with NestQuest, is just kind of, it's a big piece of the puzzle, but a really important one is just simply where and what habitats do bumblebees like to nest in? And I kind of got a start on this question in 2022 and 2023 with my master's research, where my strategy for looking for nests was again to use those like 1,500 meter square plots, those soccer field size plots, to search for nests in forests, prairies, and I also looked on the forest prairie edge for nests to see if the bumblebees were preferring or what they were preferring in this gradient of habitats from forest to prairie. So I spent a total of 168 hours looking in each of these habitats, with the help of 2 to 3 people in each summer, looking in these plots. And just to take home with this, with like the 4 of us, we spent a lot of time looking for nests in these 3 different habitats in Minnesota. And we did have some success. We found 25 nests total during our surveys. We found 7 more just accidentally outside of surveys. Sometimes when you're looking for bumblebee nests, you find them when you least expect it. It's just totally random chance. But of the ones when we were like officially surveying, 24 out of the 25 we found in prairies and edges. And we only found a single nest in the forest on the very last day of surveying in 2023, which was very surprising to me. But the take home from this is in Minnesota, at least on the St. Croix River, where I was doing my research, bumblebees were preferring to nest in prairie and edge-like habitats. So that kind of brings us back to how are people finding nests? Like Elaine talked about, there's people using detection dogs, using their sense of smell to find nests. Some folks use genetic analysis techniques to kind of quantify how many nests are on the landscape. However, this doesn't really find nests on the landscape. It's more about collecting workers off of flowers, seeing how they're related, and then that can give us an idea of like what is the genetic diversity of these workers to give us an idea of how many nests there might be. There's transect visual surveys, which I talked about and Elaine talked about, and this is the most similar thing to what we're going to be doing with NestQuest. The mapping the flight patterns from Morgan, that's crazy, by the way, the triangulation on the map. There's a reason no one's done that since the 60s. As Elaine said, that is really hard. It'd be really cool if somebody did it though. And then radio tracking, which I think we're going to be doing a little bit in NestQuest as well.
Yeah, so if just to hold on there a second, there was one comment about somebody being interested in the detection dogs. I just wanted to mention that we do also have a researcher that we've been sharing some nests with here who has been training her dog, and she's very interested in coming out once we do find nests to have her dog out working at some of our sites. So there may be some more opportunity to learn about that. We'll have to see how that develops over the summer. Once we actually find nests, we'll be able to share some more information about that. And yeah, one of the kind of study goals here is for us to kind of compare efficiency. We'll be doing some radio tracking, but we want to compare the efficiency with just these visual transect surveys.
Yeah, and that's why we need volunteers, because we want to find a lot of nests, right? We want to know if we can find nests, us together as a group of volunteers, as well as comparing the efficiency of radio tracking. Like using volunteer work for finding bumblebee nests, as far as I know, has rarely been done in the United States. There's that study from the UK in 2004. And it really hasn't been employed here in North America yet. So we're kind of breaking some new ground with this. And then also the radio tracking, as Elaine was saying, that technology is always improving. And comparing these different strategies that we've been talking about of finding nests to up our efficiency and finding these difficult parts of the bumblebee life is really important.
Yeah, so with the radio tracking, we're excited to try that, but it does involve the equipment is not that cheap, really. It's about $200 for each transmitter that we put on a bee, and you don't usually end up getting those back once they fly away from you. So so there, and it also, you know, just there is time from staff and everyone to figure out what's going on and interpret the data. So yeah, there's, I think, more people doing radio tracking than there are doing volunteer programs. So we're interested in kind of seeing like how if people are gonna be doing this across the country, what's gonna be the most efficient way for people to start doing this more.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so kind of getting into our protocol and volunteer requirements. So here are some of the requirements to participate. So the first thing you need to be a volunteer for the Nest Quest is time. You just gotta have time to go out there. Like we mentioned, takes a lot of time to find bumblebee nests. I spent over 400 hours looking. You just need some time to get out there for an hour every once in a while to look for nests. Curiosity and excitement about nature in the outdoors. Looking for bumblebee nests visually takes some attention, and just kind of being curious about like what you're seeing in the field and what like insects are flying around is important, and it's just fun to be excited about being outside. A cell phone or tablet, transportation to get to your Nest Quest site, and internet access to upload data. So step one to participate is attend a training, which I think we're all doing right now. There's also an additional training in person at Highland Park on June 30th from 9 to 11. Do you have anything to add on that, Elaine or Elise?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about what you do, but this will be a chance for us to get together and do it together. There may or may not be nests there that we find when we're out there, but we will at least see bumblebees. We'll be able to show you kind of how to get to your site, how to navigate around there, and in person we can go through these forms that you'd be using as just a way to give you more confidence in what you're doing.
Yep, and we'll talk about other things like pacing, what is the pace we want you to be moving when you're out looking for nests, how big the plots are, what it's actually like to walk through tall grass, since we'll be doing this in one of the actual survey plots that some of our volunteers will be visiting.
Yeah, nothing like being out in the field for training. So step two is to choose your Nest Quest site. So where you're going to be spending your time looking for nests. There's 4 different places that you can be looking for nests this season. In Washington County, there's Lake Elmo Park Reserve, which is a big park reserve with tallgrass prairie, forest, and a lake east of the cities. Dakota County, there's Lebanon Hills Regional Park. Actually, I'm not super familiar with Lebanon Hills, but there's a lot of prairie there, I believe. And then for Three Rivers Parks volunteers, there's Crow-Hassan Park Reserve, which is an awesome restoration prairie, and then Highland Park Reserve. And if you're going to be a Three Rivers Parks volunteer, you might see me at some point, especially at Crow-Hassan. So if you see me, say hey. And then step 3 is to plan your survey. So choose a plot from the list of sites, sign up for your survey date to be going out and surveying for a nest. The main goal is you'll be visiting your site every other week for 1 hour. So just getting out there to look for a nest for just 1 hour every other week. And each date will have an early and a late time slot. So looking for nests in the morning or looking for nests in the afternoon. It's still kind of unclear when the better time is to look for nests, and I think it varies across species. So we want to make sure we're getting a good data set on looking for nests in the morning versus in the afternoon.
One other thing with the planning your survey in terms of signing up, it's really important. We'll share the sign up form with everybody. It will be posted on our website as well, but it's important that folks are signing up for the times that they'll be going out to visit their sites, because we don't want 2 volunteers in the same site at the same time, just to make sure that all of our survey efforts are the same.
Mm.
And we're also going to be having so the staff there'll be besides the three of us, there's also Clara Costello with the B Squad and a couple of other research technicians that we'll be having over the summer that will be coming out. So we'll be kind of filling in where we look at those forms to see like, oh, we don't have quite enough people going to this site. We'll make sure that we get out there and get it covered. So we need to make sure we know where you all are going.
Okay, so step 4 for doing your NestQuest survey is to gather your supplies. So you need a cell phone or some sort of smart tablet for recording data. So recording your track and recording things into your data sheet. You need your volunteer badge and appropriate footwear and clothing for walking through prairies and forests. Like Elise said, I feel like walking through a prairie sounds kind of easy, but then as the summer goes on and it gets taller and taller, it becomes harder and harder. But walking through a prairie is super awesome, especially if you're wearing good boots and long pants. Any comments on this slide?
We'll talk a little bit more about the appropriate clothing and footwear and stuff when we get to field safety things at the end.
So what exactly does a NestQuest look like? What one of our surveys look like? So as I mentioned, you're going to be visiting your site every other week for 1 hour between late June and late August. This is like the peak time to be looking for bumblebee nests, as that's when there's going to be the most workers on the landscape. And I'll talk about this, I think, in the next slide, but just looking for that traffic of bees going in and out of the nest is important. So we want to be looking when the nests are the most populous and have the most bees in them. So you'll be visiting your sites every other week for an hour for approximately 5 visits, so spending a total of 5 hours out there. And what you'll be doing in your plot is conducting a slow meandering walk through your plot, looking for signs of bumblebee nests. And then you'll be recording your data at the end of your survey. So looking for signs of a bumblebee nest, exactly how do you recognize when there is a nest in the ground in front of you? So the main thing you're looking for is looking for a worker coming into the nest or leaving the nest. This is a picture here of a bumblebee coming out of her nest. Sometimes that hole can be really small in the ground. So looking at the ground and just looking for holes might be the first thing you're thinking of when you're looking for a bumblebee nest, but you might get out there and realize there is 100 holes out here. Any one of these could have a nest in it. So that's why we need to look for that worker or a queen to be coming in or out of the nest to signal us to what hole is actually being used by a bumblebee. For some nests that nest on the surface, like this picture here, the lower one, sometimes when you get near one of these nests, you might hear buzzing coming from this nest that's on the surface. You can test this too by taking your pencil or something and kind of just gently poking what you assume is like the nest clump, and it'll respond with some sort of buzz. And generally, when bumblebees are going in and out of the nest, they're doing circles around the nest entrance. This is also called an orientation flight. And what that kind of looks like is when a bee is coming into their nest, they're orienting themselves to where their nest is, trying to remember where it's at. And sometimes that looks like some sort of toilet bowl swirl of a bumblebee going down into the nest. Same thing when they come out, like a reverse toilet bowl swirl. They come out of the nest and they're flying around their entrance, remembering these different landmarks and the smell of their nest to kind of give themselves and orient themselves to the landscape before they go off to forage. So I have a little video to share because I think my toilet bowl swirl analogy might be hard to visualize. But I'm going to show you a video of a nest that I saw in 2022 of the black and gold bumblebee, also known as Bombus aricomus, going into their nest. So I'm probably going to play this a couple times. But what you're going to see is these bees, they come in and they kind of do this slow descent coming down into the nest. You can also see a bumblebee kind of in the background of this video flying around. As they're coming in, they're just circling in just closer and closer to the nest before they lower into the ground. So in this video, this is kind of what you're going to see in the field when you find a bumblebee nest, is you're not going to see a hole. It's not going to be obvious. But what is going to be obvious is these bumblebees doing this behavior that is clearly not visiting a flower, right? Any questions or comments on recognizing a bumblebee nest? All right. Here, questions. This was my question slide. If not, as always, we can just drop it in the chat and we'll answer it as we're going.
Question, Chan.
Yeah.
So how cautious do we need to be when we're walking in the field that we could step on, that we could land on a bumblebee nest?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually like, I think pretty rare to step directly onto a nest. Generally those surface nests are pretty small, maybe like this big around at most, the ones I've seen. And they are surprisingly strong. If you step on one, it's not just gonna like squash it completely and that's a dead nest. They'll let you know, like you're gonna hear that buzzing and you will step up and you won't squish it. And generally, as you get closer, you're gonna hear buzzing in general from a nest. So what I'm trying to say is it would be really unlikely to step on a nest and you would be alerted beforehand because I don't know if we talked about this yet exactly, but like bumblebees are generally pretty docile, but around their nest, they're going to be a little more protective. So they'll let you know if you're too close. Yeah.
Walking pretty slowly. We're not going to be running through it.
Yeah, exactly. That helps too.
Yeah.
Good question. Any other questions before I think I pass it back on to Elaine or Elise? All right. I'm going to stop sharing. Well, we're going to take a short break.
Yeah, why
And
don't
this
you
is a
leave it on
chance.
this slide just for a second?
Yeah, we can take a short break on this slide. Basically at this slide, we're going to download the 123 Survey 123 app onto your phone or tablet and create an account. This is what we're going to use to report and record our data. So there's some instructions here for depending on your phone, depending on what phone you have. Also, if a question pops into your head, this is our time. And yeah, this is a chance to take a break as well.
Yeah, so when we come back, I'll be taking you through some of the forms that we have that are in this Survey 123 app. So if you want to have it on your own device, that might help. You can go through it yourself, or I'll also just be showing you. Should we do like a 10-minute break? 10-minute
Yeah.
break? So then
Take a
we
little
have
break.
minutes to download this and you know, as with things, you know, you need to create an account. So go through the fun of that if you're up for doing that now. And then, yeah, we'll meet you back here at 6:55.
Sounds good. I'm gonna pass the share over to one of y'all. Cool.
Yes, that's gonna be me.
I see there's a question or a message in the chat. I've downloaded the ArcGIS app, but I don't have an option to create an account, only to sign in. I tried to create an account on a web browser too, and there's no option to do that I can find. Are other folks running into encountering similar issues? Yes. Okay.
I
I
also ran into that issue.
But it does say continue without signing in on the bottom.
Okay,
Let me grab this.
I'm thinking you might need to be affiliated with an institution to have an ArcGIS online account, because ArcGIS is like this big software that's really expensive.
Yeah, but my understanding was like anybody, because I mean, I know other people that have done this with volunteers, like anybody should be able to get the Survey 123 app
Mhm.
and just get into it.
Yeah.
Without an ArcGIS account,
Well,
but
looks like there's some folks that said they got signed in. Someone said that were able to continue without signing in.
yes.
Okay,
And I think like your phone is gonna count as like your account. And when we do surveys, my guess would be then you can add them to the project or something like that. Wendy said I created a GitHub account and can sign in with that. So that's something.
okay, yeah, I mean. What was I gonna say? Sorry, I lost what I was gonna say. Do you have something?
Mm-mm.
All right, so hopefully this works because we've made these surveys here, and if it doesn't, we'll find another way as I was explaining before, that we're figuring out how this all is gonna work. So we do have three different forms that we have in Survey 123 right now. So there's one form for just the NestQuest surveys. So if you are able to get into the Survey 123, you should be able to just kind of search NestQuest and you should be able to find this survey. We'll also share links that you can get to the survey. There's going to be another form to use when you do discover a nest. So you'll kind of pause yourself on your survey and move over to this nest location form. And then we do have another optional thing for you to do. If you are, one of the things we're going to be doing this summer is monitoring the traffic at the nests that we find. So as Chan mentioned, you're never quite sure what you're going to find when you're out there. We don't know how many nests we're going to find at these sites. But we're going to spend time out there looking at them. We figured for some of you, some of you may not find nests over the summer, and you may want to go and look at nests because you're curious. And so we'll have options for you to be able to sign up for times to go and just do observations of the traffic at some of our found nest locations. So part of our survey data is also going to be some other things that go in there. So so the date, the time of arrival, if you have anybody else out there with you, things like temperature, cloud cover, wind speed, air quality index. So these are all in this NestQuest survey, which even without the app, you should be able to open it up and see what it looks like with this link. So the QR code, or maybe
putting the
Lisa's
link in the
already
chat.
put it in the
Yeah.
chat. So I am just going to move over, even though this doesn't look like grab times. See, does that show up?
show the form.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right thing. So just to give you a view of what things would look like on your NestQuest survey. You'd have the site name, which would just be the park name of where you're at. And at the parks, we're gonna have two different locations. So you'll have a map, you'll know which one you're at. You'll be able to just enter your start time. It will usually just automatically put in the time that it is when you're kind of clicking on these things for your start time. You can enter your name, and then well, see, this isn't going to let me show you how this really looks. We're going to be able to capture your path, but I might need to show you on a different screen to show you what that looks like. Let me see if things are going to cooperate here. For some reason, this is scrolling like crazy.
While
Okay.
Elaine's looking for that, I just want to share that I found a link to create an ArcGIS public account, which is free. And I'm just going to drop that in the chat. So if someone wants to give that a try at some point, that is in the chat now.
Okay, so okay.
Yep. No, we're good.
When you go in to do your survey, part of the reason why we want to use the Survey 123 is it has this really cool way for us to be able to get information about the path that you're walking, because we want to be able to look at that, to have information about the length of the length of area that you covered when you were walking through there, as well as being able to look more closely at the habitat that you were in. So the sites that we're picking for you to go and do your surveys in are mostly prairie, but all of them have some wooded areas too, usually kind of at the edges of things. And we're wanting you to spend some time in the woods and some time in the open prairie. And we're not being particular about spend this much time in the woods, spend this much time in the prairie, but by tracking your path, we'll be able to go in and just look at that ourselves. And so just kind of asking you to remember to spend some time in the woods, even though it's mostly prairie out there. So when you open up your Survey 123 app and you're starting to track your survey path, you can see this thing flashing here. And you want to click on the one that's next to it, which it doesn't really let me do here because I'm not connected. I'm not on a cellular device here, but you can see this one next to it that has that kind of dot line and the crosshatch. If you click on that when on your phone or tablet out in the field, it will just start, it will drop a point and it will add a point about every half minute, I think it is. And so it will continually just like drop points so that we get your whole track while you are walking around. And then when you are done, there's a little check mark over on the side that you can click. When you're all done, then it will record. It will record your whole track that you did.
We're planning to do sort of a screen recording on a phone, to show more clearly what those icons look like, that we will share with you all. So you'll be able to sort of go back and see what that form looks like when it's actually in action.
So then when you are done with your survey, so you will just have a timer yourself. So you can have a time yourself a timer set on your watch or on your phone for an hour that you're going to spend walking around your site. And then when you're done, you can enter in the end time. It's nice to get the temperature, which you might just need to rely on if you have a weather app on your phone that goes to a close weather station. We have some categories here to pick for wind speed, which hopefully the descriptions here are clear, between from calm up to a strong breeze. And there's some descriptions there to help you figure out what is what. We are interested in getting some air quality information. So airnow.gov has an air quality index that varies from like 20 up to 200 or 300 their number. So if you go to airnow.gov, they also have an app that you can just get on your phone to pull it up and get your location. We just started looking for that air quality index number. So it's an AQI number. We're also interested just in general, how many times you saw bumblebees during your survey. So you don't need to keep track of every single bee that you saw. We want you just concentrating on looking at the bees and seeing where they're going. But, if you were out there and you didn't see any bees and you didn't find any nests, that's different than if you saw lots of bees and you still didn't see any nests. We want to get some idea of what you saw for bumblebee activity out there. So did you see 0? Did you see just a couple? And then we have, 5 to 10, 10 to 19, 20 to 39, or more than 40 bumblebees. So just in general, how were they out there? Then for the habitat, we want just for that whole area where you were looking, how much of the area is covered in currently blooming flowers. So a lot of times it's just going to be in this kind of lower, 25% range, unless you're in someplace really, really crazy with flowers. And then we want to know, we just have slots here for kind of the top 10 plants that you saw blooming. So the top 10 kind of most abundant plants that you noticed as you were walking around, and just the name of the plant. So don't forget about trees and shrubs, and an estimate of the percent of the area that they were covering. So we can describe this more. This is something that might be easier to talk about at the field day too. So we can kind of show you how we generally do that. And then you can submit, and that is it for this field collection. One thing to note, when you are in the Survey 123 app, you don't need to be connected to data. It will let you just save this in an outbox. So you can just save this and it will just be there in the app. And you can go in and change names. If you weren't sure about the names of the plants that you saw, you can still edit it. And then later when you're connected to data, when you're at home, if you've kind of checked on any kind of things you had questions about, then you can send the survey afterwards.
You should also be able to download the surveys in the app, so you don't need to worry about trying to get them to load or anything while you're out there in the field.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, with the accounts and like saving your survey data to Survey 123, the link. So I just tried to make an account with the link that I sent, and apparently using a public account like that doesn't give you access to this. But I found out you don't need to have an account to do this. So I was able to get the surveys onto my phone. So when you have the surveys on your phone, it should look like this. And without an account, you can do this. If you just hit on the search bar, there's that QR code thing right there. And if you just go in and scan the QR codes using that, it'll save it directly onto your phone. And then from there, you should be able to access those surveys anytime.
Thanks,
So that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
No, that's super helpful, because yeah, I've done it in a way that works for me, but then.
Yeah, I think it's confusing that it wants you to make an account, but also it doesn't want you to make an account. But from what I just learned, yeah, the scan is the way to do it, and you don't need to make an account. You don't need to sign into anything, and it's saved locally onto your phone, which you then upload later. Yeah, that's
Thanks for troubleshooting.
Yep, that's what I'll say about that. Yeah.
Yay. Any questions on that point up to now. It might just be something where everybody needs to kind of play with it a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say one more thing. So to get it to save to my phone, I sent like a blank survey in my outbox to save it onto my phone. And then when you want to, you can click on one of the surveys and it'll give you the options down here to collect or send data that you've collected. So if you want to start a new survey, you're just going to hit collect and it just pulls up a new survey for you right there. And then you just go for it. All right, now I'm done.
Thank you. I didn't even think of just like, oh, I could just show my phone, but my phone screen is all cracked, so that would probably.
I sped ran the troubleshooting and I'm happy to hold it up. So yeah, and we can all help each other as we figure new things out about it.
Yeah. So then, if during your survey, you do end up finding a nest, so you first may just see a bee flying down, you know, into a hole in the ground, and you may need to just hang out there for a little bit to see if it was sometimes bees do kind of weird stuff and just fly down and they're hanging out. You're gonna want to wait till you see a couple of bees flying in, and you know, poking around a little bit to see if there is a nest there. So you may need to give it a little bit of time. I know Chan, sometimes you spend a long time sitting there, but for volunteers, I was thinking 15 minutes waiting to see if someone else shows up before you give up.
Yeah, can I make a comment about that experience? Yeah, so my comment on this is like humans, bumblebees are not perfect organisms, and sometimes they make mistakes and sometimes they're clumsy, and you may see a bumblebee just like on the ground doing something and you don't know what it's doing, and when you're in your nest searching mode, you're going to be like, oh my god, this bumblebee is going into a nest. And you might see a bumblebee go into the grass and you'll never see it again, but you'll sit there for 45 minutes and you'll be wondering, am I wasting my time? Or if I step away this next minute, is there going to be a bumblebee coming up out of the ground? So like Elaine said, if you give it like 20 minutes and you're not seeing anything, you can probably count on that maybe it wasn't a nest. And that's, like Elaine was saying, it's important to sit and make sure you see 2 or 3 bees come out of the ground before you can confidently say that you found a nest.
So then we do have another form then for collecting the nest location and getting some other information. But we'll also be providing you with some tags and flagging to physically mark the spot where you are at the time. If it's possible to grab some photos of the nest occupants, that can help us figure out who they are. But all of these nests that you discover, the staff from NestQuest will be coming out and looking at them. So you don't need to spend a lot of time doing this, because we will come out and figure out what species there are. We're going to be collecting a bunch more detailed data around all of these nests. But we do want you, when you discover the nest, to use this form. And this is going to be a little bit of double duty, because we also want to get this information entered into Bumblebee Watch. So we'll explain now what that is. The reason why we want to do that is because there's just a couple of pieces of information we want to make sure that we get directly. But Bumblebee Watch has a great feature for recording nests, and it's something that's accessed by scientists kind of all over the place that are studying nests. So this is a way for us to make sure that the data we're collecting have kind of the maximum impact in terms of not being used just by us, but by being used by any bumblebee scientists that want to go into Bumblebee Watch and get the data there on nests. So I am going to just go over for a minute to our nest discovery form. This will let me click on things. Of course, like the Zoom bar is like right over where I need to
Right.
click on things. So that's part of my problem. So the nest discovery form is similar with the site name, time and date. This one for the nest location, it's not a track, it's just a dot. So we are just getting the dot of the location of where the nest location is. So the main question that's different between ours and what you would enter into later for Bumblebee Watch is this question. And we just want to know if you discovered the nest during your 1 hour of survey time. You may be surveying for an hour, and then when you're walking back to the trail, that may be when you find a nest. We still want to definitely know about those nests, but we want to know if it was not a part of your official survey time. So that's just a simple yes or no question. These other questions will also are ones that are repeated on the Bumblebee Watch form. But this is with the survey 1, 2, 3, that's something that you can just kind of easily have out in the field. For most of these forms, we'll offer a paper form too, if people just really don't want to deal with this out in the field, if they'd rather just kind of check things on with a clipboard on a piece of paper and deal with entering the data on a computer later. We'll have that option for some of these, we do still need that location and you know, this kind of minimum information. So we're hoping that this will be something that is a little bit more convenient for you to use. You're just out there in the field and you just can kind of go bam, bam, bam through this. You can then easily pull this up and look at it later when you're entering things into the Bumblebee Watch web portal. For a bumblebee species, you're not required to know how to identify all these different kinds of bumblebees. I was going to add wording here. This is just kind of only do this if you know what it is. Don't worry about it. If you don't know what species it is, we will figure that out later.
We will also share some Bumblebee ID resources on the NestQuest website for anybody who is interested.
Yeah, so we definitely can help you if you want to learn Bumblebee ID, but don't stress out if it's not something you're ready to take on right now. Then there's some questions about how much traffic you see at the nest. So so this one, you would just be taking a few minutes to sit there and see if take 5 minutes to sit there and see how many bees are coming in and out. And the least is 1 or fewer bees per 5 minutes. Then where the nest was located generally, so there's a lot of bees that make nests underground, some are on the surface, sometimes they'll be up in a cavity of a tree. You have a chance to describe any other details about the nesting site. Bees nests can sometimes have multiple entrances. So how many entrances do you see that are being used? If there's you can just see where the main entrance is, just what direction it faces, what kind of materials are being used in the nest. So this is going to be hard to see if it's an underground nest, but this is just if you can see what they're using for their nest. You can check off any of those that you recognize. How we're interested in how much sun or shade is there at the nest and in the area of the nest. And if you know about soils and can tell if you're in an area that's kind of these 3 main kinds of soil in the world. So, so yeah, with that, I am going to let Elise show you what it looks like on Bumblebee Watch.
We're gonna go kind of quick through using Bumblebee Watch just to conserve time to look at some other things here. So you're doing basically the same thing on Bumblebee Watch as you're doing in this NestQuest Nest Discovery form. So you'll go to bumblebeewatch.org, and then in the top left side, you'll go to add Bumblebee sightings, and then Bumblebee Watch, you'll click submit sightings. You'll put in your location. So we can just, as an example here, put in here at the Bee Lab. You'll say how accurate you are, so how close you are to the nest sighting, and then you'll put in the date of observation. And then hit submit, and then you have, oops. Why is this?
Yeah, just if you choose it from your locations, then it doesn't have to be unique. There, yeah.
Okay, so then once you have chosen your location, then you have either the option that says add sighting or add nest. You'll want to click add nest. There's the option to upload some photos. I think you can select up to 5 photos. It'll ask you for species. You have to select species on Bumblebee Watch in order to submit, but you can select SPA. So this is Bombus SPA. So this just means it's a bumblebee nest, but you don't know what type of bumblebee it is. And then it will ask you the similar questions to our nest discovery form. So how much traffic, where the nest is, etc. So same things we just went over. And then when you're finished, you click add nest, and that is saved to your Bumblebee Watch profile. Any questions about Bumblebee Watch or nest discovery before we talk about nest monitoring? All right.
All right, so we mentioned that we do want to know about nests if you find them outside of the survey times, and we'll be using the same protocols. So we have this optional nest monitoring, and this is to observe activity happening at the nests, and those will be 20-minute observation slots. This will be something that you will have a data sheet to record. We do have a survey 1 through 3 that's still kind of in the process of coming together. But same kind of things where we're wanting to know the wind, if there's shade around there. And then we're just going to be summing up. So when you're watching there for 20 minutes, you're going to be seeing if there's bees coming in the nest with pollen or bees coming in the nest without pollen. We'll have a little thing there for you to estimate the size of the pollen loads. And then also just the number of bees exiting. And also if you see any other animals or anything else interesting there. The main thing with the nest traffic is just going to be bees coming in and out of the nest. And I will pass it on to Elise for some field safety.
Right. Right, so field safety is super important, especially because some of these sites are a little bit remote, you know, they're off the trail. You might not be seeing anybody else when you're out there. So it's really important to know how to keep yourself safe. One of the most important things to do when you're going out in the field is to tell somebody where you're going. So sharing with them the exact location of your NestQuest site and letting them know when you expect to return. So letting them know how long your survey will take, how long your drive time is. You want there to be somebody that knows when you're supposed to be back. Elaine and I are happy to be that person for you. You know, if you need somebody to sort of be aware of where you're at, we can do that for you. Another great thing to do is bring a travel size first aid kit with you, just in case of any sort of emergencies when you're out in the field. It's important to be aware of any field risks. So this is things like ticks, plants like poison ivy, poison oak, wild parsnip, and heat exhaustion. So protecting yourself against these different field risks. So wearing long pants, tucking your pants into your socks to prevent, ticks from crawling up your pant leg, or poison ivy from touching your bare skin. Things like that. Bringing lots of water with you to make sure you're staying hydrated, wearing sunscreen or covering your skin, wearing long sleeves and a hat, those kind of things to keep yourself safe. And if you feel unsafe anytime during your survey, so if you feel like it's too hot for you to be out there, if there's a lot of poison ivy and you are feeling uncomfortable, if there's somebody else out at your field site that you don't feel comfortable continuing your survey, it is okay to leave your survey without finishing. We are not asking that you risk your own personal safety in order to gather this data. The other important aspect of field safety is talking about how to, or what to expect, safety near active bumblebee nests. And like Chan mentioned at the beginnings, bumblebees are generally very docile, but they may be a little bit more defensive at their nests. And some of this is a little bit dependent on species. There are some species of bumblebees like Bombus fervidus, the yellow bumblebee, is documented to be a little bit more defensive of their nests. Bombus impatiens, the common eastern bumblebee, when sometimes their colonies can get really, really, really huge, and they can be a little bit more defensive in those cases. It is all very anecdotal, but bumblebees may be more defensive at their nests than when they're foraging on flowers. So if you do find a nest, it's important to stay calm, remember that you are just there to observe. So staying calm at the nest site, observing the nest from a safe distance. So this is kind of where we want to be. You want to be sort of paying attention to the cues that the bees are giving you. So if you're hearing lots and lots of really loud buzzing, or if lots of bees are flying out of the nest and flying at you, you'll either want to take lots of steps back or leave the nest site if you're uncomfortable. But sort of looking for those cues in order to observe the nest from a safe distance. Chan, do you want to comment at all on what your opinion is in terms of a safe distance?
Yeah, so as I was talking about earlier with orientation flights, when you're near a nest, you're going to throw that bumblebee's orientation completely off because you're a new object in their area, right? They're going to return home and see this giant human standing there, and they're going to be like, where am I? And they will fly around and be lost and not sure where their nest is. So if you are standing there near your nest and you are seeing bumblebees like flying around lost, that's probably a good sign that you're too close. That doesn't necessarily mean you're in danger, but that's a good sign to maybe take a couple steps back and look from and observe from a further distance away.
And sometimes it's even just a matter of like moving to the side, like you might be right in front
Yeah.
of where they want to come zooming in. And if you just move to the left a couple feet, then they can make their way in.
Yeah, generally I've been able to sit about 2 or 3 meters away from a nest, or like that's like 5 or 6, 7 feet, without disturbing them. But it varies nest to nest, and as you visit nests, you'll learn what's comfortable for them and therefore what's comfortable for you.
And the nests also have different, even within a species, the colonies will have different personalities. So sometimes you have a colony that just wants more space. And if bees are coming out and they're mad, they tend to, just so you know, they tend to kind of fly at your head, which is can be very disconcerting. But just staying calm and walking away, they don't chase you for very long unless you get one super agitated one that just really decides they want to follow you for a long time. But normally is if you just walk even 10, 20 feet away, they'll give up and go back to their nest.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, something that might make you feel more comfortable is like if you, like Elaine's wearing a beautiful scarf, if you carry a scarf with you out to your nest site, you can put it over your head. If there's a bee that flies out, just those kind of things that can make you feel more comfortable in the event that something like that could happen. It is unlikely that you will get stung, but that is always a potential risk, you know, when you're working with bees or working around bees. So it's a good idea to have some sort of antihistamine in your first aid kit. Benadryl works best, you know, against insect stings, but you're not supposed to take it if you are driving. So if you have someone else out with you at your site, it could be okay to take Benadryl, but it might be a good idea to carry a non-drowsy antihistamine like Zyrtec or something in the unlikely event that you do get stung. Any other comments on field safety? Any questions? Yeah.
My concern for being stung wouldn't be so much the bumblebees as ground wasps. What has been your experience?
You can treat them pretty similarly to bumblebees. I think a lot of what we talked about here applies to ground wasps as well. Ground wasps might be a tad more aggressive in general. That's partly because their nests are so much more exposed, or they just have bigger colonies. And when you have a bigger colony, you have a larger workforce to employ as bees or wasps to defend the nest. But I think generally the same tips apply with ground wasps. Just like if you see it, you know, respect the fact that they have a home there. And sometimes you just get stung because you didn't know. So that's just something to maybe be prepared for when working around stinging insects. Is just like sometimes it just happens, which isn't super reassuring, but
Yeah.
it's part of the work.
Yeah.
But generally you
something-
probably won't get stung.
Is that something you ran into during your field work looking for nests? Did you guys stumble on any?
This was actually an interesting observation we had. There was a bumblebee nest that we observed, and right next to it was a paper wasp nest within inches of each other. So while we got to learn about this bumblebee nest, we also observed this wasp nest, and there was never any sort of like qualm with us and the wasp or bees or the bees and the wasp together. They act fairly similarly.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Elaine.
A lot of times the kind of field safety clothing, so if you're wearing like light colored clothing and you have your pants tucked into your socks and you have long sleeves and you have a hat, like a lot of times that will protect most of the places where they might be getting you as well. If you don't have a lot of skin exposed. I'm not that they can sting through clothes, but it's better if you're covered.
Yeah, and if this gives any comfort, I've been working with bumblebees and nests for like 3 years now, and bumblebees with 4 or 5, and I've still yet to be stung by a bumblebee. And wasps, just like it's wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes you just stumble upon a nest and they're gonna sting you. But if you know you're not allergic, like have a severe allergic reaction, then I don't think there's as much to necessarily worry about other than it might hurt and swell.
Yeah, and I've spent decades walking around prairies and not gotten stung from stepping on nests. I've gotten stung from other things, but not from stepping on nests while I'm wandering around the prairies.
Great. So I think that just about wraps up most of the content that we had for you today. There is still some information coming soon. So we will have maps of the field site. So I think Elaine mentioned this earlier, each of those 4 different parks will have 2 different survey sites. So we will have maps for you that have coordinates of where these sites are and some information about landmarks and things to look for to find the sites. We will also have printable data sheets. So you'll be able to record your data sheets. You'll be able to print them out, record your data that way if you'd rather do that than record it on the app in the field. We are also providing all of our volunteers with volunteer badges, which we will require you to wear when you are out doing your surveys. This is something that the parks are actually asking all of the volunteers to do, just so you are sort of telling everybody why you're there, who you are, what you're looking for. These volunteer badges will be available at the field training on the 30th for folks that can attend that. Or you can pick them up at the B Lab. We can also mail them to you. Our sign up form will be coming soon. So signing up for your survey times at each of these different sites. That will be available on the website soon as well. And then this training has been recorded, will be posted to the website for you to go back to. There's other helpful information there. There's some more field safety information, our volunteer handbook. And you should be able to answer a lot of your other questions on the NestQuest websites. So registration is available also on the events page of our website for the event on June 30th at Highland Park Reserve. It would be awesome for folks to attend that if you're available. Do we have any? I think we're probably
We're a little bit over
we're a little
now.
bit over, but if folks are wanting,
close.
wanting to stick around and ask questions, we're happy to do that for a few more minutes.
Oh yeah, and someone's asking for the survey QR codes with the information you're sending, so yes.
Yes, and we
Yeah,
can make
that's
sure those
important.
get posted on the website as well. So they're in a place where they're easily accessible.
Yeah, I was literally finishing those 2 hours ago, so they are not on the website yet, but we will make sure everybody has them. Yes, Dana.
So since you've now have a location for the field training, did you find a bumblebee nest then in Highland?
We didn't, we decided, we still have to find a nest this year. I mean, there are workers out there, nests going, they're still, I think they're a little bit behind. And it's just been hard to get out and look for nests with all the rain. So it's maybe more on our side. But we decided it would be useful to just go out to one of the sites and just talk about how we find nests. And what our plan is that we will eventually be finding nests, and we'll probably do another like last minute kind of invitation, or when we find a nest, we'll do kind of a quick turnaround, plan an event within the next week after that and invite folks to that.
You could find one by the 30th.
We could.
It is
My,
possible. I think the rain is the kicker for us for now.
I have a couple comments. I was
Just have
gonna
one more
say, I
question.
think, Oh, yeah.
Is the in-person training required?
No.
Okay, so how would we go about getting our badges? We have to go then to the St. Paul location?
So either you can pick them up from the B Lab, or we can also mail them out too.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's still a little early to be looking for nests right now. I've still been seeing some bumblebees nest searching. I'm still seeing some queens out. So that doesn't necessarily mean there's a nest set up for some of those queens yet. What was my other comment I was gonna say?
Yeah,
Oh
we were
yeah.
just at Highland was that on Friday?
Thursday, yeah.
And we mostly just saw queens searching. We didn't even see workers yet.
Yeah, I've seen workers, I've seen some queens with pollen, which means a queen has a nest, but is still doing all the work herself and there's no workers. So that's just one bee going in and out of a nest, which is a little harder to find. What was the other thing I was gonna say? Oh yeah, I was just gonna comment, like, I think that it can be a bit intimidating to think about finding a nest because we have talked about it's difficult, but I was just gonna say when you find a nest and you see it, it's like one of those things that once you see it, you won't unsee it, and you will be like, oh my God, this is definitely a nest, and it feels really good to spend that time and find a nest. So that's my optimism I'm throwing out there for y'all. It definitely is clear when you see one, even if you don't see a nest prior. You'll know what you're looking at.
Yep, and Wendy's saying that they have a nest in their backyard, so definitely add that to Bumblebee Watch.
Yeah, that's a Bumblebee Watch submission for sure. Donna, do you have another question?
How long does it take for the bumblebee's eggs to hatch once she has a nest?
From egg
Um,
to adult, it's about 21 days.
And then they're a larva for a while, right?
Right, so it's about it's just a couple days for the eggs to hatch. And then then they have a few weeks when they go through different stages as a larva, and then, but generally about 3 weeks. It varies with temperature from when the egg is laid to when the adult emerges.
Interesting.
All right, I know we are a little bit over time. So thank you all so much for attending tonight. We are so excited to have so many volunteers that are interested in this program this year. Like Elaine mentioned, this is the first year of NestQuest. So if there are things that we are not explaining clearly, if there are any questions you have, please let us know. We are happy to help explain things and want to make sure that content is clearly explained to all of our volunteers. So we appreciate any kind of feedback that you have for us as well. You can reach out to us at any time.
Yeah, we'll be checking with you throughout the season to see how is it going? Are we asking too much? Are we asking just enough? And yeah, super appreciate it. We're very excited about seeing what you all find.
yeah, first year of NestQuest, but also one of the first community science studies on nesting bumblebees. So this is a big deal to me and to us anyway.
Totally. All right, well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Maybe we will see some of you in person at the training on June 30th.
Well, yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.